model in Saudi Arabia. So this session will be presented by Mr. Abdulrahman Al-Haidari. Abdulrahman Al-Haidari is an EFL teacher for 18 years and worked extensively in training students to assimilate into future professions within various fields. His current work focuses on innovating EFL teaching practices by promoting the linguistic and pedagogical theories and the practices of the Australian School of Systemic Functional Linguistics. So, Mr. Abdulrahman, you have the platform and you are ready to start, please. Mr. Abdulrahman, we can't hear you now.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Can you hear me, brother?
Yes, we can hear you well. You can go ahead.
Perfect. All right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the third workshop and the final session for today. It's actually mind-blowing how much information we had from amazing presenters, and it's very humbling. However, this last session, I would like it to be a little bit more mellow, a little bit more personal, as well as academic. Let's say this following presentation is a bit of a story of my PhD right now, and a personal story of me as an EFL teacher. A teacher that goes to work every day and looking in the eyes of his students and asking himself, am I doing the right job? Looking at my students and telling them, I want you from the bottom of my heart to be the best that you can, to succeed in life. I want to provide you with the skills needed for you to be seen tomorrow, to be able to speak and communicate and compete against other English speakers, native speakers, English as second language speakers, even Saudi students that had the chance to study overseas. Will I reach with you your full potential, and will I be able to actually give you the needed skills to communicate efficiently in English? Will I be able to provide you with a good job tomorrow, or will I be, hopefully not, a reason why you don't actually get the job that you need? So we'll start this with a bit of a background, where I think all English teachers actually come and go around trying to find new paths and new ways to teach. Then we'll go through a quick aim of the presentation, a quick review of the teaching styles commonly applied in Saudi. I actually had a lot to talk about this, but mashallah, the previous presenters spoke so well about it, I actually decreased it a lot. And then we're going to talk about a modern school, the Sydney School learning cycle model. We'll have a quick review about the theoretical embedded theories of language and the educational theories as well. Then we'll have a detailed review of the model, and then we'll have plenty of examples for the model and how it's applied in the classroom. So background, a journey as an EFL teacher student. I was fortunate enough to be a teacher of English language for 4 years before I went to study for my postgrads in Australia, and it was frustrating. This kind of resembles my first assignments that I was sending. Although I spoke proper English and I did know English like in spoken terms, not in academic way, I still had these kind of feedbacks from my teachers. And I realized that it wasn't as easy as I told my students. Just that I spoke English was not enough for me to assemble or to be enrolled in an academic atmosphere or a professional one. I realized later on that even though I spoke English, my thoughts were pretty much in Arabic. That was something that I had no idea about, and it was mind-blowing for me to realize that I didn't know how to think in a proper way as an English speaker. So Arabic, as we see over here in the design and Kaplan's model over here, English language tends to go in a straight line, introduction, background, etc. Arabic, on the other hand, it goes in a zigzag way. This is how we normally speak and think. Think about it for a second. When we were writing in Ta'bir in high school and middle school a long time ago, we used to start our texts with the same introduction, and then we put the ayat from Quran about the same topic, and then hadith about the same topic, and then a story about the same topic, meaning that we are talking a lot, but we're not making any points. We're just repeating whatever we were saying. That was, of course, an influence of Arabic language. I realized something else that bothered me. When I was studying over there in Australia, I realized that the Saudi students were really happy to go to school. That was mind-blowing. My students, normally, this is a very common thing in Saudi Arabia, where students tend to see English class as a very tense class that really exerts their efforts and is draining their mental capacities and their feelings. They're very stressed in it. So what was even more mind-blowing, I actually had to do a practicum where I was supposed to teach for a whole semester in Arabic language in Australia. So I was having a class with a colleague of mine. She was teaching the first half, I was teaching the second half. So when the supervisor came to observe my classroom, the students were participating with the previous teacher. However, she was Australian. They were participating with her. However, the moment I stood up, all the classroom went silent. The same students that were active and participating, the moment I stood up and I asked the question, no one rose their hand. And it was mind-blowing. And my supervisor told me why. When I asked the question, I asked, what is the answer for the question? And she told me that was a mistake. I should have asked, how do you think we may answer this question? Apparently, and she was very right, this is a very different world of thinking. When I asked, what is the answer? It was assumed that I already know the right answer, and the students are now going through a possible threat that they might have the wrong answer. While as the previous teacher was engaging the students, she was asking them how we may reach a common answer between each other. There is no right answer. We are trying to find the right answer. So the aim of the topic today is trying to bring that kind of experience to empower English language teachers by enabling them to use a modern student-centered teaching approach. To do that, we need to first step a little bit back and get familiar with the relevant theories and approaches, and then get familiar with the new one that we try to assemble to. Is my voice clear? Perfect. So, thank you so much. So, traditional teaching styles. We spoke so much about it. MashaAllah, the previous presenters, MashaAllah, blown me away with their presentations. There's not much I can talk about this, so I'll go through it very quickly, and I did delete a lot about it. So traditional teaching style, as we know, is very commonly used in Arabic-speaking countries. The problem is, we studied 16 years. There is no possible way that we can magically enter a classroom and then decide, I am going to teach a student-centered approach. There is a residue of 16 years that are imprinted in our brains. There is no way that we can actually get out of it without really working hard intentionally on it. And the previous studies do explain that. So for the first study, Lin researched teachers from China, Saudi, and other countries that normally tend to teach traditional approach. And they pressured them and they exposed them to new teaching methods. And then they realized that the teacher's lack of understanding of the new approach results in them always falling back implicitly without realizing to go back to teaching in old theories, traditional teaching approaches, even though they were trained to teach in a student-centered approach. Moreover, Al-Muhannas realized after, again, another program, induction teachers to student-centered approaches, and he realized that even if English language curriculum could be argued to be some extent a communicative theory, the teachers still relied on traditional grammar translation methods. And he correctly concluded in the final quote, he said that English teachers' training is inadequate because it could not replace the deeply rooted tradition of language teaching through grammar translation method. So even though the teachers were exposed to teachers, student-centered and modern ways of teaching, the teachers always fall back on what they already been exposed to for 16 years. This is not easy to get rid of, and it really needs a lot of work. So before we need to teach our students, we actually need to train ourselves how we can apply these kind of new theories. So the teaching styles and approaches, overall teacher-centered, very commonly used, product-based approach, very commonly used in Saudi Arabia, and now we're trying to move on to student-centered approach, and I think I have the solution for it with this Sydney School and the learning cycle, which will be explained very soon. Teacher-centered, we don't need to explain too much about it. A teacher talks, a student listens, students go away, wander around, and the teacher continues trying to pass down his wisdom to his students. Of course, we know that doesn't really work properly. So, product-based approach. This is commonly what we use when we are talking about writing skills. We have normally and traditionally, and we still do it to this day, we bring a student a paragraph and we drill it in his head or her head. We tell them, read it, read it, read it, memorize it, and then we ask them to come in the exam and rewrite the same paragraph. Of course, that will never be applicable in real life. So the problems with this product-based approach is the emphasis on teaching learners to produce similar texts or product. It pays little attention to whatever mental activities happen, such as brainstorming or pre-writing or planning or investigating ideas. Nothing of that happens in real life. In real life, no one can come and say, I memorized the paragraph, and they write it down. Meaning that our students, and I'm sorry to say, our students could easily graduate from our colleges and never had actually written anything proper. All our training for them is in the view of write a paragraph or fill in the blank. But we really seldom give them any chance to think about what they want to write or how they can write it. So, traditional style outcomes, of course, we are always under scrutiny as English teachers. We are working very hard. I can easily say I have never met so far an English teacher that was not a genius in finding new ways to explain things to his students and try to relate them to their world. But this is normally an individual effort that is not substantiated by previous studies or approaches. It's normally something that the teacher has a desire to do, and they need a little bit more guidance. So the educational issues that we have over here, they're so overwhelming and they're so plenty, but here's some of them. Emphasizing grammar accuracy over the production of meaning. When we test our students, most of the introductions, most of the topics are always grammar. Arab students perform normally the lowest at TOEFL levels in comparison to non-native English speakers. That's a study in the 1987, and more recently, 2015, normally Arab background speakers are viewed as being inadequately prepared to use English. So it's honestly overwhelming when we see how much problems we have with English education, to the point that we're teaching our students now from first grade. We're kind of probably one of the few countries that need to teach English for 12 years. There is something wrong about this. There's something terribly wrong where we need to fix it. So if we go down and try to see the learner's perspective, why are they not doing so well? There's plenty of studies doing that actually explored Saudi students' views, and honestly, they are absolutely right. They have the right to be frustrated. Some of these examples on the left column, learners' interpretations towards EFL class, They have a sense of study overload, lack of feedback, stress, and being exposed to poor teaching practices. Not necessarily poor teaching practices, but of course, they are bombarded with a lot of grammar, but not really much of a practice that they can actually say something. And we have good reasons for that. In our classes, in our middle school, high schools, we have 45 students. If I have 40 minutes, to teach my students, and I'm going to give each student 1 minute to talk, a whole day of practicing English, whole session, I have only 1 minute to give that student, and I realized that my classroom finished and I didn't even open my mouth, and not a single student spoke more than 1 minute. This is one big problem. We have other problems such as low levels of learning motivation. The student studied 6 years of English before he comes to college. He knows or she knows that they will not learn English in the classroom. They have no motivation, and they have the right to be. They know that they studied for 6 years before they came to college, and when they come to our colleges, they go, I know I will never learn English. I will have to travel. This is a big red flag. Why do our students, when they go overseas, they spend 1 year, 1 semester they study general English, and then the second semester they study academic English, and they pass, and then suddenly they are all right to speak English? That's a big red flag for me. So another big issue for the students, the subjects are not relevant to their communicational needs. We have a lot of topics in 6 years or more that they are studying, and they realize that this English is in the confines of the classroom. They really don't get to use it. So, of course, that will tell them that you will never learn in this classroom. On the other side, on the right, we have learners' interpretations towards their EFL teachers. Especially when students in the studies where they actually explore students' interpretations that are studying overseas, overseas students, Saudi students, when they go overseas, there are a couple of studies that interviewed them and asked them about their previous experiences of studying in English in Arab countries or Saudi Arabia, and they had the same interpretations. Teachers dominate classroom interaction. The teacher gives them little chance to speak. They get very anxious to talk with the teacher because normally talking with the teacher is in the form of a question. The teacher says, what's the meaning of that? To show that he's attentive or not. So that's actually not encouraging to answer or talk, but it's actually more of a face threat. And then, of course, the final result is they end up trying to avoid talking to the teacher or not having any eye contact with the teacher, so they stay out of harm's way. So many problems. Wallahi, it's overwhelming. Absolutely overwhelming. And looking at the literature makes it even worse. Looking at the students' results make it even worse. We are really going uphill over here. However, with a lot of problems comes a lot of opportunities. If we can say that we have a lot of problems in our teaching style, I know I had a lot of problems with my teaching style, as I told you in the previous story, where I was teaching in Australia and I realized that my students automatically became passive learners. When I thought, okay, if I change my teaching style, it means I will get a lot of rewards after that. So yes, it is overwhelming, but if we can actually face our challenges, we can do so much about it. Student-centered style, no joke about it. We know it. We spoke so much about it already in these 2 days. Student-centered teaching is an approach that places the learner at the center of the learning. That means that the student is responsible for learning while the tutor is responsible for facilitating the learning. Same thing that the previous two speakers, Jazahumullah khair, spoke about and did so eloquently that there's not much that I can say about it. Of course, this is how it looks when we are having a student-centered approach. As I said, my colleague spoke too much about it, so we don't need to do too much. We need to know how. That's where it's interesting. Okay, I know that I want to make a student-centered class. I just need to know how. And this is where Sydney School comes in. Sydney School was a school that was a tradition that was invented around the 1970s. In the 1970s, there was a lot of immigrants that went to Australia from different backgrounds. And most of them did not speak English. They were mostly Italians, Greek, and and Germans and others. And the schooling education over there, they had this agenda, which was a very interesting one. They wanted to make sure that they give their students, the foreign students, the immigrants, to give them the same capacity to compete for work with the English native speakers. This is really interesting because they have the same goals that we have right here, right now. They wanted to teach English for foreign English speakers, not to get them to pass IELTS, not to get them to pass TOEFL, but to give them communicative skills that they need in their own professions, to work as carpenters, to work as plumbers, to work as builders. And they had each job with a specific syllabus that they tackled and said, okay, we are going to teach you this, which later on, of course, became ESP, English for Specific Purposes. So we'll take a quick overview about the linguistic background, the embedded theories, and then a quick look at the educational theories, because these are the theories that we need to really think closely when we are trying to change what we are doing in our classes. So the linguistic theory embedded in this school is the systemic functional linguistics applied by or founded by Professor Michael Halliday. He worked for over 30 years to come up with a new model, a modern model of language, a language theory, and he called it systemic functional linguistics. His model, and this is where it becomes very interesting, he says that language is embedded in the fabric of life. Language can never be used in a vacuum. We can never have a proper language in the form of fill in the blanks. Everything in language has to happen in this big circle. This big circle over here, the circle of context of culture. Every language has a culture, and you can't say anything that does not go well with that culture. Another thing is a context situation. So say, for example, you are in the airport. Say, for example, you are in school. You are in the university. And the most important of them all is purpose. And this cannot be overemphasized enough. Purpose. There is no spoken language or written words that does not have a clear purpose. This is a big no-no that we lack in our schools. When we teach something, it normally does not have a purpose but to fill in the blank. However, if I go to the supermarket and I talk to someone, I have a different language than if I go to the classroom. And everywhere I have to speak in a very specific way, which are composed of field, tenor, and mode. Those are the registers. The context of culture combined with the context of situation gives me a register. This register tells me what language I need to use as a text. So those registers are field, tenor, and mode. Field is the choices we make in language to describe reality around us. So for example, if I'm in school, I will have to, if I want to talk in school, I will have to know the kind of words such as principal, teacher, student. However, if I'm in the hospital, I'll have to know doctor, nurse, patient. If I'm working in a company, I'll need to know manager, executive, and clerk. This is very clear, and it's the most obvious one. The language that constructs reality around us. The second one is tenor. The choices we make in language to convey meaning of formality or authority or friendship or closeness. So, for example, and this is something brilliant that the systemic functional linguistics find that, is that if I change the position of power between the two speakers, my language will be impacted. So, for example, if a student talks to a teacher and he wants to ask for a pen, or she wants to ask for a pen, it will be Mr. or Miss, may I have a pen, please? 4 steps. However, if it's a student to another student, give me the pen, please. If it's a friend to a friend, it will be, give me the pen for a minute. Just like that, the choices of language differed just by changing the positions of power between the interlocutors or the speakers and listeners. Mode, and this is where it comes very handy in writing, the choices we make in language to arrange ideas. So for example, if I'm talking, I will use and so and after. However, in academic language, when I'm writing something, I'll definitely use furthermore, consequently, thus, or subsequently. But I wouldn't rely too much on and. The moment we have a look at these three systems, the moment we get to look at language in a more accurate way. So for example, here are some texts. What's the first one on the left? It's obviously a receipt. The question is, did you need to read anything in it before you knew what it is? The second one on the right, of course, is a boarding pass. However, we don't need to read it. We already know what it is. The reason why we know it is because of mode. Language is organized in a way that makes us understand reoccurring events. However, when we are teaching our students, we don't even come close to talk about this. We talk in the form of fill in the blank, choose the correct word, choose the correct grammar. If we want to teach our students to write something, we have to actually show them the form. And if we need to show them the form, we actually need to have a context with a real purpose. Over here, we have all nouns, not a single verb, not a single imperative, not a single tense. However, it's a perfect text. The meanings are conveyed and everything is very clear, and everything that our students are going through right now studying, they're really not doing much. And it's because the mode is different. So we'll get to see how that affects our teaching when we get to the educational part. So to summarize the embedded linguistic theories over here, language is always embedded in social events. If we want to try to teach language without actually teaching a social event, we're wasting our time. By the way, of course, I'm getting very excited over here. This is, of course, based on the systemic functional linguistics views of theory, and I'm I quite take that stance. So language is, number one, language is always embedded in social event. If we teach it without an event, there's no way we're going to actually get anything real happening. Number two, communication always happen in a setting. If we teach a language without saying that this happens in a class, or this happens in a supermarket between a buyer and a seller, or this happens between a receptionist and a guest, there's no point. Third, communication always has a desired goal. If we don't have a desired goal, there is no need to speak. If there is no desired message, there is no need to write. If we ask the student to write a paragraph, but the student does not have the desire to talk about the topic, we are going uphill. There is no way that this will work. The student has to have a very clear message that they want to convey. And the final one, communication always follows a set of moves known by the interlocutors. This is the theory. The theory is splendid, but until you put it into perspective or practice, it's valueless. So those were the linguistic theories in the background. I want you to keep it in the background. It will inform the practice later. However, now we get into the interesting part. Embedded educational theory, genre approach. When Halliday came out with his systemic functional linguistics, people said, okay, this is beautiful, but what can you do with it? And his students made the effort, and it became one of the most important modern relevant theories. One of them, as such big people such as Haydn says, one of the most important influential concepts in literature education. And Johns as well says genre approach caused a paradigm shift, emphasis on paradigm shift. This is a big word that can't be thrown easily. And concepts and practices of language teachers. So his students, James Martin and Christie, both later on became professors working on promoting this theory of language in practice. They conducted numerous studies action research studies trying to fit that model of language into teaching those foreign students that I was telling you about, trying to get them vocational jobs. So they define genre as a staged, goal-oriented, purposeful activity in which speakers engage as members of our cultures. In a simpler way, genre is a term for grouping text together, representing how writers or speakers typically use language to respond to reoccurring situations. Things in life and language are very reoccurring. We greet people, we say farewells, we open phone lines, we buy stuff. All this is repetitive, and people do understand that because it is being repetitive. However, this is kind of a dance between the writer and the reader, or the speaker and the listener. Take it in Arabic, for example. In Arabic, when we talk with each other, our genre, our context, our culture. السلام عليكم وعليكم السلام كيف حالك عساك بخير طيب ايش اخبارك ايش مسوي الحمد لله. No one answers. Everyone is giving questions, but no one is actually answering. If we do that in English, everything falls apart. It's because in Arabic we have a set of moves that is not actually there in English. So here's a clear example for it. This is a social event. Speaker 1. Welcome to STC Phone Services. This is Ahmed Al-Ghamdi. How may I help you today? Speaker 2. Hello, my phone is not receiving internet. Speaker 1. All right, can you provide me with your name, please? Speaker 2. My name is Sami Al-Amri. Speaker 1. Thanks, Mr. Al-Amri. I have just refreshed your account. It should be working again in 2 minutes. Is there anything else? Speaker 2. No, that was all. Thanks. Speaker 1. Thank you for calling. Have a nice day. Now, this is a genre. It has a purpose, it has a context, it has a place, and it has stages. These are the stages, and this is actually how they teach those providers, those phone service providers. This is genre approach. They have these kind of texts for them, transcripts of actual conversations, actual phone calls, and they teach it this way. Can you hear me, brothers? Perfect. So to take it as stages, if we want to teach our students, we have to take it as stages. And we tell our students, way far from grammar. We take them in a very real, accurate, purposeful situation where they actually use this language. And we tell them, all right, the first stage is greeting. Second stage, problem. Third stage, asking for personal information. Stage after that, providing personal information. Stage, addressing the problem. Stage, ending the conversation. Stage, accepting the end of the conversation. If we teach our students in this kind of style, where they actually start a communication and end it, they will be able to practice. However, when our students are studying something that is decontextualized, something as saying awesome, something as saying negative, something as pretty much grammar, there is no way they can approach anyone in the street and start a conversation because they don't have these steps. Here's an example from some of our textbooks. Again, I'm a hardliner systemic functional linguist, so I'm not saying that I know what is right. I'm just saying this is from the view of systemic functional linguistics. If I'm looking here at this high school textbook, and I'm looking at number 2, vocabulary. All right, over here, vocabulary. Conversational English. Hold on, you can't be serious. What are you up to? How is it going? Nice one. How on the planet is the student going to be able to use any of this? The student is accumulating knowledge that can't be applied in real life situations. After that, grammar, present and present progressive, right now, usually or repeatedly. Where can they do that? And when they're learning so that they can actually fill in the blanks over here. Where in life will they ever find someone that is talking to them and says a word and then says blank, fill in the blank? That will never happen. And that's why it will never work. If we go down over here, sports, museum, festival, dinner, how, for God's sake, how do we expect our learners to be able to do anything with this? So here comes the embedded learning theory. This is where actually things get interesting. Where can I, as an English teacher, do something about this? What can we have to teach the textbook. No one is saying anything else. We have to teach it, and we will. The thing is, we are the orchestrators. We, the English language teachers, we are the ones that get things done. We can easily scaffold the program, easily put this exercises in a way that actually makes sense. So the learning cycle is where after about 30 years of action research studies, they came out with a number of models. They look at similar, I'll show you some of them. So the first one starts with building the context or field. When I start teaching my students something, I have to give him a context, or her. I have to give her a context and a field. This language you can use in class. This language you can use in an airport. This language you can use on chat online. I have to give them a context. I can't emphasize enough. There is no language without context. After that, we model the text. The teacher shows the student how to do the text. And then the teachers guide the text or the creation of the text. And then we go through the last stage of independent construction. Yes, I see some of the questions. I promise you it will come. I promise you. All right? So humor me a bit. So, and here's where I, as an English teacher, benefit from this. If I did not have a theory to scaffold me, to say, you stop here and you stop talking, you let the students do this over here, I would have never been able to do this. I was teaching, thinking that I'm teaching the student center, as I told you in the beginning in Australia. And then I realized I'm bringing my previous experiences with me. I had to have this model in front of me to tell me, you do this in this session, you do that in this session. So the first one, I'm an instructor. This is where it becomes very interesting because the students are used to this one. They're not going to be shot out of the moon over here and not know what they're starting with. No, the teacher starts with full contact, telling them everything to do. And then in the second one, he starts to demonstrate with the students, involving the students with them. And then the third one, he lets the students practice it while he looks at them from far. And the fourth one, he lets them do all the work alone. I will show you how to model the text. That's a promise. So, while the teacher moves from an instructor to the demonstrator to a facilitator to assessor, the student moves from being a listener to being a helper. He helps the teacher to actually be the one that does the work with the guidance of the teacher, and ends doing the whole work while the teacher assesses them. Here's another model, pretty much the same idea. You first have to set the context, as you see in the big circle over here. Setting the context, that's the first job that we have to do, set the context. And then we check the text and deconstruct it. This is all going to be demonstrated in a couple of minutes. We deconstruct the text by checking the schematic structure, checking the words that are under it, and then we model it. In the second stage, joint construction. The teacher goes on the board and asks the students, okay, what do we write first? What do we need here? What do we need there? The students help the teacher write it. Then the students do it in group works, and then they do it individually, and I will take you through it all in a sec. That's another model, but we'll go through them very, very clearly over here. Applying theory into practice. This is all theoretical. This sounds so beautiful. This sounds so good. You told us a lot of theories. It doesn't relate to real life. No, it does. And we'll see it in a second. In theory, there is no difference between theory and practice, but in practice, there is. So, an existing lesson over here. Over here, we have Abdullah, another text from our high school books. My name is Abdullah, and I'm 18 years old, Saudi student. I can't believe school is over. Now it's time to get ready for university, and I can't wait. I will study engineering at University of Bristol. Who talks like this? Who is he talking to? Where is he talking? Who would listen to this? No one. Do you guys agree or not? And after that, we get the writing task. All right, he read something about Abdullah, and then number C, write an entry for your school year's book. We don't have school's yearbooks. This is a foreign concept for our students. This does not make any sense. Talk about yourself. This guy did not talk about himself. This guy presented an English text because no audience will actually listen to this. All right, me as an English teacher, what is my duty? How can I orchestrate this and make it into something meaningful? We have 4 stages based on the learning cycle that we saw before. Lesson planning, building the context, modeling the text, guided practice, independent construction. Lesson planning. Identify, we have a couple of steps. Identify a target community or communities. Identify a social practice. Select semiotic resources, texts that are relevant to what you're trying to teach, and plan text encounters. So if we were talking about, talk about yourself, like right over here. And this is actually all authentic text that I use with my students, and you will see a lot of my students' writings coming right here. So before I actually go through that, I look at the text. All right, the text is about talk about yourself, introduce yourself. So I identify the community. The community will be the classroom, students and teacher. The social practice will be present yourself in spoken and in written language. I now set the context. To make the students actually engage with it, I have to make the texts relevant to them. So I select semiotic resources that are relevant to them. Something like this one. Hello there, everyone. I would like to introduce myself to you. My name is Abdulaziz and I'm 17 years old. I'm from Mecca in Aziziyah. I live in Aziziyah. I enjoy playing video games. Here, every student in the class will pay attention. I enjoy playing games. My favorite game is Call of Duty and Tekken, and I can promise you the class will not stop talking after this. Everyone will be engaged. I also enjoy watching soccer. My favorite team is Al-Ahli. The context is elementary level. It could go to any level. By the way, this is pretty much the textbook that we're using right now. If you look at the text over here, this is talking about a graduate who's studying in college, who's overseas trying to find a place, trying to find an apartment, who's living with an overseas person. Over here, you can check, do the text as way as you want. Anyway, you can teach it in elementary schools, you can teach it to graduate students. I actually taught it to my students who were graduating engineering department from civil engineering department, and they actually, in 8 weeks, they were able to write their final reports based on that. So you can tweak the texts. However, text B, good morning to you all. I'm Abdulrahman al-Zahrani. I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm 17 years old, yada, yada, yada. I enjoy watching movies and TV shows. I watch Netflix and Shahid, yada, yada, yada. Here is where we start analyzing the text. This is all in the planning. This is before I go to class. I start checking the steps, just like we said in genre. We have the text. Oh, if you humor me a little bit, you'll find the argument essays coming up as well. And if you like, I can share you later on some of the reports that I was telling you about. This is all applicable very easily. Just get the idea, and I promise you, you can do the same in every level that you want. So, by the way, this is how I studied how to write my PhD thesis. And wish me luck. Inshallah, it's the last month to submit. Pray for me. So, planning the lesson. We first take a step back and we look how this text is organized. Greeting, purpose, introducing himself or herself, where he's from, what he likes, hobbies, what he likes, hobbies too, what he wants to be in the future, and ending the presentation. Now we have a very clear construction for someone to actually do a real conversation. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. Now we take text B. We show the students the first text. We show them the stages, and then we tell them. Backwards. We bring them the second text. All right. Now they analyze the first text. They saw it. They know the steps. All right, now we give them another text. Very simple, very relevant. However, they have to decide what are the stages. Number one, ask the learners to identify the stages. What happens? Good morning to you all. What does that do? They have to do it with themselves in groups of fours. Break the class in group of fours and let them experience with the text. You can switch the words up and down and let them try to figure it out creatively. Ask learners to compare between the stages, between text A and text B. Are the stages all the same? Are they all relevant? Do they all follow the same way, or can some of them come before and after? And this is where the class goes on fire. Ask the groups to compare their answers. So each group takes their answer and shows it to the other group, and they will have a big debate. If you can tell the students to stick to English and talk in English, you will be amazed how fast they grasp this language. To talk to them and say, no, you're wrong. And he says, why? Because this is first. They will speak broken English, but they will convey the message, and they will talk in English while you're standing there and looking at them, trying to get to know how to talk. Now we come to the second stage of the modeling phase. Now the students know the stages. They know the greeting, the purpose, they know the stages, but they don't have enough wealth of language so they can produce their own texts. They're going to produce a text that is very similar to the one that I already wrote, just like product-based. That's not what we want. So we go back again and you go greeting. And the teacher writes it on the board. What words do we have for greeting? Hello there, everyone. And then the students go wild. Good morning, good afternoon. And the student and the teacher writes it on the board with the help of the students. Now the students are taking charge of the class a little bit by a little bit. And by the end of the session, they will take control of the whole class. So, purpose. I would like to introduce myself to you. What else can I say? And the students start going wild and give a lot of other answers. Where is he from? I am from. How can I say that? And the students give a lot of more answers. And the teacher keeps writing it down on the board. The students are taking notes now. When they do their writing, they will have a kind of schedule a table that looks like this. And they will have enough wealth of information, enough wealth and structure of the schematic structure of the text, and enough wealth of language resources where they have enough words that they can use in the right place. Now comes the stage where the students take a little bit even more. Ask the students. Abdulaziz is new in class and he wants to introduce himself to the classmate or to his classmates. How can you help them? And you write the brain map or the mind map on the board. Abdulaziz. What are the schematic structures? What do we need to talk about? Where he lives, first circle. What he likes, circle 1. What he studies, number 2. And then you ask them to come up with ideas. What can we write about his hobbies? He likes this, he likes that, all in English. This is the main point. All in English, nothing in Arabic right now. The students are now trying to speak in English. They're cradling, but they will start running very soon if you keep doing this. They're talking in English, they're throwing words in a context that has a purpose that will reach to a final product. Then the teacher writes this on the board: stage, greeting, purpose, introduction, or have it as a handout. And you ask the students to write it in groups of 4 or 5. The students now don't look at this task as a scary thing. They're very familiar with it. They know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly what they want to write about, and they know the exact words that they're going to use. They're just going to creatively manipulate the words to suit what they actually have inside of them. They want to talk about TV. They want to talk about soccer. They want to talk about whatever they want to talk. They will be able to manipulate the text to make it work for them. And for the first time, most probably it will be the first time that they actually generate meaning in English based on their own desires inside of them. After that, here's a further step where the students take over. The teacher does not assess at this stage. They already know everything. They're just trying to practice. So you give each group the paper of the other group, and you ask them to criticize the paper of that student, of that group. The students know everything right now. They're now trying to pick on each other. They're trying to find mistakes. Where did they mess up? Where did they slip? I want to be better than them. I'm going to get a better result than them. And it becomes a very lively classroom where everyone is excited. Does the text follow all the steps? Yes, no, explain. And you will find everyone trying to pinpoint something wrong on the other student. Always tell them, speak in English, speak in English. And then they have that desire burning inside of them to tell the other student, you messed up. And they will think a little bit in their head to try to get that sentence coming out, but because they're talking to their peers, they're not scared to talk to the teacher. They will be talking to each and every one of them without anyone judging them, without anyone fearing that the teacher will deduct marks or notice that he was wrong. So after that, are the steps organized correctly? Yes or no? Explain. Do they have vocabulary mistakes? Yeah, they have grammar mistakes. Now they have spelling mistakes. And they do, and this is the beautiful part. You worked hard in the beginning, but now you let the classroom take over. You will sit and observe them talking in English, most likely for the first time in their lives. Then they share it with the teacher. You can give your feedback after that. You can also write it on the board with them again, if you like. After that, you provide the students with the independent construction of the text. You tell them, all right, you now know everything you need to know. Write for me about yourself or whatever genre you're trying to tackle. You provide them with the task. You tell them to do the brain map, the brainstorm. By the way, if you do that, you're going to save yourself so much hassle in marking the papers. Once you tell the students to do the brain map, you tell the other students to check on it. You don't need to check on it because they know it. They do the checking. They get explicit feedback, each individual one of them. You don't need to do that. And then you provide them time to write the draft. You provide them with the outline, and they write the draft alone. Again, they have peer feedback. Then, after they get the peer feedback, they do the redrafting. Then they give you the final product. It doesn't need to be in the same day. It could be done in 3-4 days just to tackle one genre. However, once you get the last product, after they had the schematic structure planned right, the ideas planned right in the brainstorm, the brain map, and after that, the paper will come to you done. You really wouldn't have to spend much time on it. You will just take a glance on it and put right, because they went through so much before they got to that. Samples of students' work. So here's something I gave to my students, people that were talking that this is basic. All right, this is more interesting. Favorite movies or novel or TV series? I gave this outline for my students. I told them, I want you to tell me, rather than to write a report from the textbook and the topic about the textbook, I asked them to write about something that they would like. Choose something that you like and tell us about it. A movie, a novel, a TV series, a song, whatever you choose. And I gave them the schematic structure: introduction, background, the purpose, the plot of the information, the general information. Paragraph 1, how did you feel about this? Why did you feel that like that? What did you learn from it? And a conclusion. And here's the brain maps, some of the brain maps that the students sent. This will not take 30 seconds from me to mark. I will do it just by one look. I can tell him, you need to do this one or you missed that one. Or he can do it with his peer. This is another brain map. This is for the same topic, same class. This is their outline. This is their actual writing. This is not my writing. This is their writing. Watching TV series is the best way to spend time and fun. I want to give a simple overview about superhero series, The Umbrella Academy. After years from rising to fame as a superheroes who fight crime, etc. This is a student writing. I did not have any word over there written for him. This is another student. I spend most of the time watching TV series. I want to discuss with you my favorite series, the series begin. This is all they're writing. And of course, once those are first year college students, first semester college students. Here's the final product. After they give me the outline, after I look at it, over here, I mark it. I don't have to look at it much. I see the stages. They're all there. Khalas. I don't need to spend 1 minute looking at this. 1 minute and I'm done. All right, it looks good. Print it out. And they print it out like this. And I promise you, I did not write a single word over here. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You can do it the same stages. I'm telling you, this is how they started teaching immigrant students, people that have no education. And they went up and I was introduced to my PhD learning this way. That's what I'm telling you. This is what they're doing. We know what they're doing. We can apply it. My favorite novel, this is another student's writing. And again, I promise you, I did not write a single word over here. He's writing about the novel of Game of Thrones. This is no elementary stuff. Students' final drafts. Again, this is a student, this is when I was at this student, I asked them to write about an argument essay. And this is a first semester college student that was going in his induction first year to enter medicine. And he started with the idea, the genre that I had for them that time was an argument essay. And he started with the opinion that alternative medicine is actually good. I showed them the steps, how to make an argument essay. All right, go for it. And after he did the brain map, the brainstorm, he found that he had more reasons to doubt that alternative medicine works. And he changed his whole topic. And this is one paragraph from his writing. His writing is actually more than this. Again, the same principles that I applied for that topic of introduce yourself is the same one over here for a medicine student talking about alternative medicine. Students' interpretation of this teaching approach. I had spent the last 10 years working on this thesis. It's been a pain, but inshallah, this is the last presentation I'll do before I submit it. Inshallah, I feel great that I had this wonderful audience with me. And inshallah, next time I tell you it's done, inshallah. So, just hit me on the email. I can share a lot of things with you. You can actually even Google it, genre approach or genre schematic structure, and you'll find whatever you like. If you hit me, I'll make a list of some references if you like, and I'll be more than happy to share. All right. So I I taught my students this, and my data collection went for 2 years. I taught the civil engineering students how to write their final projects, and then I chased them for 2 years after they got their jobs, and I actually did ask them about this teaching approach, and I got a lot of details from them. So they've, based on their own interpretation, and they already graduated, so they didn't have any reason to lie to me or to be nice to me, because I did promise them and I told them that this is actually something to help other students. Please be as honest as you can. So they told me that from their point of view, the classroom interaction was very live. They were very engaged. They found that the teacher cared about them. I'm damn sure, and I can bet my money on this, not a single teacher over here doesn't care about his students or her students. It's just that the students, when they are bombarded with all that English language that they can't use, and they know that they can't please the teacher starts to look like a scary creature for them. But I'm pretty sure the reason that they thought a student looks as a caring giver in this way was pretty much because they felt that they can do something with this teacher, that they actually can improve. They, of course, with the language outcome, they had the first, a lot of them had the first time to actually practice in English or speak in English or write in English. All of them got a lot of feedback that wasn't there before. So after that, self-conceptions, of course, they felt so great. And I had my students who graduated who kept their final drafts that they wrote and showed me like 4 years later, telling me, look, I kept this draft for you. That they were so proud that they wrote something in English. It was such a moment for them, because they actually said it. This is me. This is not you. This is me. I said this. You didn't say it. I said it. And I say, of course, that's what we want. So, here's another sample. We can do it together if you choose. So let's say I have this textbook about dream jobs. Let's do it together. We won't be long. I have this text about dream jobs. This text does not give me any way that I can give a text for a student to say, speak or write anything. Now, the first step, as we said, if I want to do that, if I want to contextualize it, if I want to make it applicable, I need to first thing identify the target community, and then identify the social practice, select semiotic resources, and encounter texts. So, dream jobs. If I'm talking to my students about dream jobs, what topics can I, and help me in the chat, please. What topics can I talk about that I would encourage or let the student talk about a dream job? What situation can I give them? Anyone? No, no, no. I don't want to give them a topic. I want to give them a situation. A situation where they talk about their dream job. Writing a CV is an excellent one. Writing a CV. What else? Yes, after graduate, but yeah, give me the situation where they will actually have to talk about this dream job. Talk about your dream. Excellent. A job interview. Perfect. A story. Wonderful. How to become a teacher. Perfect. If they want to, if their dream job is to be a teacher. Perfect. What situation can I give to talk about a dream job? So perfect. That's the first step. Identify a social practice. Talk about your job. Talk about a role, So what target community are they going to talk to? Are they going to talk to, who are they talking to? We can play role models. So what role, role plays? What are we going to do? What are they going to talk? Who are they going to talk to? What do you think you'll be in 10 years later? Perfect. Student, teacher, perfect. So all great answers. So here's some examples, but mashallah, you guys did well. So step one, target community, we can decide, for example, a classroom or a job interview. Targeted social practice, if we choose the classroom, present to the classroom. Talk to the classroom about what you want to study in the future when you finish high school, or what do you want to work after you finish college. Or if it's a job interview, express why the individual wants this job. So why do you want this job? And then they talk about their dream job, as we'll see in a bit right now. And then planning the encounters, where we make some of the learning tasks for the students, classroom presentation or role playing as a job interview. So before we do that, before we start teaching, we actually need to go and find the text. You can find the text online. You can do your own text. It goes in every way that you want. As long as it conveys the right meaning, that's all you want. So here's just a couple of samples that I got from online. This is not my students writing. This is all online. My dream job is to be a fashion designer, or the other dream job is to be a teacher. And then this is all in the planning before we go to class. And then we take the modeling structure. I have to look at the text to make it simple to my student. I have to tell them, you need to talk about step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and end. Introduction. What is it? What do I say about it? This is what you say about it. Then reasons for liking it. What do I say? Here's the example in the text. And then we start the same cycle that we did before. The teacher demonstrates for the students. After they show them this, they bring the other text, the encounters with the other text. They bring the other text, ask them questions. Questions, how can I encounter? I want to get questions for them to know that they know the schematic structure. What kind of questions can I provide them for the second one? So now they got exposed to this one, my dream job in the pink, the fashion designer, and they got to see the steps. Now I bring this one. What kind of questions can I have to see that they actually understood the stages? For them to think about the stages and be able to write it later. So I can write something as, for example, where does this writer mentions the job? Yes? Where does the writer mention the reasons for liking the job? Now they're looking at it critically. The answer is not ready. They're not repeating a word that I'm saying. They're not filling in the blanks. They're actually using their critical capacities to find, where does this puzzle fit in? Where does he talk or she talks about the skills needed for the job? Is it the third paragraph, the first paragraph? How do you know? What words did they use? And now they're looking at it critically and they're getting very familiar with it. Then I write on the board. All right, together, and the students help me. Stage 1, for the introduction. My dream job is, and what else can I say? It's my dream to become. What else can I say? And the students start shouting their answers. And now they're not scared because everyone is throwing as a group. You're not pinpointing someone to talk. Everyone is checking with their peers the right answer and then throwing it to the teacher, and the teacher is writing it down. And of course, the student feels wonderful. The teacher wrote my answer on the board. Everyone is going to write down this answer of mine on the board on their notes. Reasons for liking. I like this job because, I like this job for, I'm fascinated by, and the teacher asks, what else can I say? I love this job. I love whatever. And the students start throwing their answers. What skills? What kind of skills do we have? Computer skills, communicative skills, whatever. And they start throwing their skills and they find their answers building up on the board. And then we give them the situation. After we write it on the board, we give them the same question, situated question. Again, can't emphasize the importance of context, situation. Imagine that you are in a job interview. The interviewer asks you, why should we hire you? Explain why this is your dream job. And now the student is on fire. The student has that urge to make and produce meaning. They're not talking about discontextualized stuff that has no relevance to do. This is the job. This is the question that they will get tomorrow, and they will be aching to answer it. That was all my presentation for today. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I always get so excited. It's been a very long journey on this thesis, and I'm so excited that it's about done. And wallahi, from the bottom of my heart, I could not be so more blessed to actually have shared this experience with all of you. Wallahi, alhamdulillah, it's a blessed to talk to all of you. I'm open for answers, questions and answers, or I leave the mic for the presenter.
Thank you so much, Mr. Abdulrahman. Actually, it was very, very attractive session for today. We really appreciate your efforts. And I would like to thank all of our audience for today. So if you have any questions, Mr. Abdulrahman will be here to answer if you have any questions. So, Mr. Abdulrahman, they ask for your email, please, if you can.
Yeah, sure. I'll post it right here in the chat room.
Okay, so you can find the email in the chat room if you would like to contact Mr. Abdulrahman in future. So, okay, so I don't think we have questions.
Actually, I don't think I can type it in the chat. Can I?
Yes, if you try.
It's not trying. Actually, let me go to the first slide. I think it's there.
Yeah, please.
Yep, that's my email.
Okay, so you can see his email posted there for any further wonderings or comments or whatever. So yes, just give it a second. Okay, here we go.
I finally typed it. It's in the chat right now. Al-Haidari.edu.sa.
Okay, Mr. Abdulrahman. That's great. Okay, so for now, I would like to thank. I would like to.
I have some questions, or I take it from you. How do you do it?
Let me see. I didn't see any questions. Yeah.
Oh, there are plenty actually. Yes. By the way, anyone that is interested in this, anyone like I'm having here, some people asking about specific types, like someone said something about industry. Just type in Google. Go at Google and type genre. I'll write it on the chat. Type genre in whatever field you're looking for. So here's genre, whatever genre, civil engineering, genre or whatever, and you'll find a lot of texts that are actually done accordingly. I actually don't use Twitter. Sorry about that.
Okay, there is a question asking about code switching or how they should force students to not speak Arabic in a classroom. So what would you comment in this question?
The reason why students talk in Arabic is because they don't have the chance or the ability to speak in English. If you have this kind of schedule on the board, and that's why I want it to be written on the board, like this one over here. Greeting, hello everyone, hi there, good morning, whatever, purpose. And it's all in English in front of them. They're not scared now. They want to talk about the first paragraph. They know that the first paragraph is in here. And they look at it and they will use it in English. The problem comes when they actually don't know how to speak in English, and then they have to fall back into Arabic. But if they have something in front of them that they can actually read from, they will be happy to use it.
Okay. Okay, I think this is can answer the question. So let's see, informative session and okay. So How can teachers implement such methods? Sorry, this going fast. So methods when class are overcrowded. So they asking about
that's actually the best. That's actually the best thing that is about this teaching approach, because once you break them into groups, they do the work. You don't need to actually go and talk to every student. You don't need to go and sign every paper or correct every paper. The students do it for you. They have the answer, the questions on the board. Did they or on the handouts? Did they follow the right order? Did they include all the information? Do they have grammatical mistakes? Yada yada yada. And the students look at it and they correct for each other. Now, if you have 40 students in the classroom, all of them are working. You're not doing the job. They're taking care of it for you.
Okay, that's wonderful. So there is a question asking, do we or should we directly correct the mistakes when it happened in the classroom?
In this, you're not supposed to do the correction yet. The correction, because you're scaffolding the student. Let me go again through the slides. Can you see the PowerPoint? Can you guys see the PowerPoint? Ah, perfect. All right, let me go back to this. So when I write for the students over here at the beginning, in the beginning, the student is not answering anything. The student is observing. I, the teacher, in the first cycle, building the context. I'm building the context. The student is only observing, listening, paying attention. They're not saying anything yet. And the second stage, they start to help me. They're not doing anything. I'm asking them to write on the board the answers with me or write the text with me. And then, only then, number 3, they go and write in groups and they don't write everything. I ask them to do the brain map first. And after they do the brain map, it's so hard to have it wrong in the brain map. And then they go and do the outline. This is the outline. They're supposed to just fill the blanks, but the blanks are connected to form a whole picture. It's so hard for them to make a mistake because they're doing it in a group. And they're not scared to make the mistake because the teacher is not looking. So they're encouraged to work. And when they check with each other, with all their peers, and everyone is looking at their other peers fixing their mistakes, and then the group comes so proud and marching to the teacher and say, here, I'm done. You really won't need to fix much mistakes at all.
Okay, that's wonderful. So we will just get to the last question. Someone asking, in which cases may teacher use the first language in the classroom, or it's accurate to use it in the classroom? What do you think, Doctor?
This is what I'm telling you. A teacher is an orchestrator. You know your students better than anyone. Wallah, no one can teach you this. The moment you can reach to the heart of your student, that's what you're doing. If your students are scared from talking in English, if you talk in English and they're all scared from you, this is just my personal belief, my own practice, I would actually start talking again in Arabic. But I would talk in Arabic while I'm on the first stage, building the context. Number 1. Building the context. I translate the words for them. I translate the stages for them. Now they know the stages and the words. After that, when I go to the modeling stage, they have the paper on their hand and they know what's happening. Only then they can actually listen to me in English. But if they're scared from Arabic in the beginning and I'm in English in the beginning and I continue talking in English, I'm just disencouraging them. That's what I believe. And I'm pretty sure we'll make the slides available as PDF for everyone that is interested.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mr. Abdulrahman. Thank you so much. Thank you to our audience for today. So we came to the end of the second day. We would like to say thank you to our speakers for their efforts. We enjoyed and we hope you found it useful. So we'll leave you now and see you tomorrow, inshallah. Thank you so much.